Let's get going. So here's what I want to talk about. How to guarantee the outcome you want. Because you can guarantee the outcome you want with what we do. Think about it like this. Think about a factory production line. Yeah, I know, Jeremico, you've worked in a factory before. I know others have worked in a factory. When you're working in a factory, Jeremico, was it ever a shock what came out at the end of the production line? Was it ever like, this production line starts up here, the raw materials, and then it goes through each stage, and then it gets to the end, and they're like, well, what the heck is that? Right? No, it doesn't happen. Why? Because the production line produces a predictable result. You start with the raw materials, you get on the, now that, hey, there may be one off, but it's you're gonna have pretty much what you designed it to do. That's exactly how this business works. That's exactly how this business works. If you have the right system, the results are predictable. And that's why I'm saying we can guarantee the outcome you want. We can absolutely guarantee the outcome you want by making sure that the system is right, making sure that the system from one end to the other is exactly the way it needs to be so that that end result is predictable. Now, how predictable? It's very predictable. And you say, well, sometimes I have a bad week, sometimes I have a good week. I hear you. But if it's wildly doing this, then there's got to be wild differences in the system that's getting you to that result. And that's very typical. That's very typical. We have a big week, then we make less dials next week. So then that catches up with us. But if you set the same system in place, the result is crazy predictable. You can go agency manager. You can go regional manager. By the way, Nick Greco is qualified district manager. He hit regional manager this month. Hutch hit regional manager. I can't wait for all those promotions. We'll have those promotions on next week's call. But I'm telling you, the big deal that we're talking about is all that stuff's predictable. I knew Nick Greco was going to go qualified DM. I wasn't even questioning it. It was not a thought on my mind about him going qualified DM. I have no doubt he's going to go qualified EVP. I have no doubt he'll go board member. I have no doubt Mike Garrow will go board member and go partner, as long as they keep doing what they're doing, because the system produces the results. It's no different than it is in real life. I was coaching a couple trying to help them through some stuff, and I was just like, they're going to get divorced. And you say, well, are you predicting the future? 100% predicting the future. If they keep operating their marriage that way, that is where that's headed. It's not a mystery. It's not unpredictable. The future is very predictable when you look at the systems. No different than our health. Right? We eat Little Debbie's every day. It's not a question of where our A1C is going to end up. It's just when, right? We eat Little Debbie's every day. We are going to change the way we look in the mirror. It's not complicated. It's the same way with this business. It's very, very, very predictable. So here's what it boils down to. When you think about your system, there's three components we got to work on. That's your habits, our routines, and our schedule. Our habits, our routines, and our schedule. Those are the moving components on our production line that are going to produce the results we want or not. Those three things are what control that production line. Is it predictable at the end? Is it what we want at the end? If not, we've got to look at those three things. Our habits, we got to look at our routines, and we got to look at our schedule. And let me tell you, number three is so big. Number three is so big. I can't tell you how many times in the course of me doing this over 20 years that someone has come back to me and said, hey, you know what? I finally made a change and started operating with a visible schedule. And I'm like, I know what happens next. I know what happens next. As long as you stick with it, you're gonna start producing at a higher level, and you're gonna start recruiting at a higher level, and your business is gonna go to the next level as long as you stick with it. That's how valuable the schedule is. That you got to understand, low performers, the masses out there, they don't operate from a visual calendar. They 100% don't. Here's a problem. Well, I know what I need to get done, Stephen. I know what I need to get done. I don't need a calendar. You 100% need a calendar. All of the top performers that I know, people that are making millions of dollars doing this, all have a visual calendar that they 100% are a slave to. Their visual calendar. The people that create freedom in this business, that's what they have. They have a visual calendar and they operate from it with zero thought of I can violate my calendar, I can blow this off, I can blow that off. It's how the high performers work. Low performers, they don't have a calendar. Why? Because they don't want to commit to it. They don't want to commit to doing the stuff they need to do to get to where they want to go. And so guess where that leads you? Frustrated to want one thing at the end of the production line, but not have the levers and the systems in place to produce it. It always leads to frustration. When I talk to people, I'm frustrated in this business. I'm just frustrated, Stephen. Let's talk about it. Let me see your visual calendar. Why don't I don't use one of those? All right. Can we start? Well, I know what I need to do, Stephen. I don't need that. Okay. Not much I can do. Does that make sense? I can't change the frustration. Number two, the number one and number two, those are the sneaky ones, the habits and the routines. There are habits that you and I gotta let go of so we can replace them with better habits. And there's routines that are not serving us, but we fall into those habits and routines. It's one of those things people say, everything's fixed. Everything's fixed. I know it. I can't control. Yeah, you can. You control your habits. You don't pick your destiny, but you do pick your habits, and your habits create that destiny. It's not complicated. Some people call it sowing and reaping. It's a matter of my habits and my routines create the outcome. It's very predictable. And so that's why that's why I'm hitting so hard on these today, because I want you to have habits and routines and a schedule that gets you where you want to go, because that's what I want. I want you winning, not frustrated. I want you happy, not frustrated. I want you having freedom, not frustrated. So that's why we've got to talk about these big three, because here's what it is. If we don't like the end product we're currently producing, we've got to change the production line. And no different than I'm sure those of you that worked at a factory can say, right? When something's not working right, they figure out where in the system something is screwing this up. Something's messing us up here. Where in from the raw material to the end are we not? Is it not working? And that's what we're talking about today. So let's talk about it. How do we rebuild that system? How do we get a system that'll serve you? All right. It starts with three big decisions. Three big decisions. And I'll tell you that most people think they've made these decisions, but the results at the end say, no, that's not true. Does that make sense? Now, I know you and I, we want to get better. So we're not scared of talking about this stuff. We're not scared of going, yeah, I say I've made a decision, but I hadn't really made the decision. Yeah, you know when you made the decision? When the actions change, right? That's when you know the decision's been made. And people make decisions all the time, right? I made a decision, but then there's no action change. It's not a real decision. So these three big decisions, well, we got to look at, you and I, because we want to get better. So we're not afraid to talk about these things. We're not afraid to go, man, I've been slacking on that. I know I've been needing it. Well, we're not afraid to do that because we want to get better. We're not trying to defend, our ego, defend our perception of ourselves. But you can't coach someone like that. Lord knows I've had tons of people like that over 20 years. It's like, God, whew. Here's what it is. You can't sell answers to someone that only wants echoes. You know what I'm saying? It's all someone wants is, you the man, keep it on, brother. If that's all they want, you can't sell them answers. But you and I, we're not scared of answers. So when I talk about these things, let's look for answers. Let's go, am I square on that? Is it legit? So here's the three big decisions you've got to make when it comes to your system and it produces and getting it to produce the outcome you want to produce. Number one is to establish priorities and ruthlessly manage them. Establish priorities. Let me tell you about priorities. If you have more than a few, then we have none. If we have more than a few priorities, we have none. I'm crystal clear. I've got my top three priorities. They're crystal clear in my mind. I know exactly what's most important to me, what's number two, and what's number three. And they got to work together to make it all work. It's that clear. And you've got to have that clarity. How do I know how clear it is? We've got to look at what we're doing. We've got to look at what we're doing. If a priority, if building your business is a priority, which is a priority for me, because I know what I can do with that. If building your business is a priority, then look at the decisions from there. I was just talking with my staff about when people want to do things their way, and they say, well, building my business is a priority. It's not really the case. Like that decision hasn't been made yet. Does it make sense? When I can get coaching from the top people here and at Integrity, I'm just doing it. Tell me how the top people of integrity hold their mouth. I hold my mouth like that. Does that make sense? Because my decisions got to match up with my priorities. It's the same thing. People say family is a priority. My marriage is a priority. But they spend all weekend playing golf with just the fellas. Does that make sense? It doesn't check out. Doesn't check out. So what are those priorities? And then do my actions line up with those priorities? So what are your priorities? Establish and then ruthlessly manage them. Let me tell you something. Best way to establish it is to do it on paper. Because here's a problem you and I deal with. Because you and I are the same. We deal with the same problem. The same problem that you and I deal with is we can be kind of full of crap when it comes to selling ourselves on how well we're doing. maybe not you, but I know it's something I deal with. So I got to do it on paper so that I look at it and I go, either it is or it isn't. So what are those priorities? And like I say, if it's more than a few, then that means we have zero priorities. And that's most people's problem. They have no real priorities that direct their life. That's why I don't get anything done. That's why there's no fruitage. There's no discernible result that you can point at and go, that's someone getting stuff done, because they haven't decided their priorities and they're not managing them. So what are those priorities? Most people would be shocked if I told them Netflix is one of your priorities. That's not one of my priorities. My priorities are clear, man. My spiritual life, my family, my business. How much time you spend on Netflix, brother? And who with? Does that make sense? So are they clear? And then ruthlessly manage them. Got to do it on paper. That's the only way it works for me, because I'll sell myself in a minute. I'm just like you. Me and you are the same. We got that voice inside that wants to tell us we're doing all right. We need to listen to the voice that says, bro, you got more. All right. Number 2 of the big 3 decisions you got to make: establish your must accomplish. And I'm not talking about goals. I'm not talking about something I'd like to do, something I'm shooting for. Man, it'd be great if I could. No, I'm talking about must accomplish. Like, I've got to get this done. I have got to get this done no matter what. No matter what. I've got to get this done. That's what goes on the must accomplish list. What's one of the things on my must accomplish list? Go partner. Go partner with integrity, because that aligns with my priorities and I know what it will allow me to do in my priorities. So it's a must accomplish. It's not a, man, it'd be great, I'd love to shoot for that. No, it's a must accomplish. It's a must accomplish. Maybe yours is, I must write $40,000 in a month of production so that I can go to 100% contract. I must accomplish that in the next few months. I must accomplish that before January 1st. I must accomplish that. I must accomplish creating $50,000 in overrides a month. I must accomplish that, because if I accomplish that, that will be in line with my other priorities and that'll allow me to, you see what I'm saying? So what are those must accomplish? And don't start adding 10, 12, 13, 14, because it's gonna be diluted and it won't scream at you for action. See, simplicity screams at us for action. When my priorities are simple and few, when my must accomplishes are simple and few, it screams at me for action. Why? Because I've got something I've got to do. When we have too many things, we dilute ourselves. Too many things, we dilute ourselves, and then we do nothing. Confused people, which includes you and I, because you and I are people. Confused people do nothing. That's why a bunch of must accomplishes, they're going to confuse us into doing nothing, because it's just overwhelming. All right. Can I add to my must accomplishes? Yeah. Oh yeah. Once I go partner, I will have a new spot open on my must accomplish list, and I've got ideas of what that will be. Does that make sense? All right. So what must you accomplish? And then number 3, these big 3 work together. What I must sacrifice. So you got priorities, must accomplish, and must sacrifice. What must you sacrifice? Here's why we've got to make a sacrifice list. Because if we're going to do something, if I'm going to go partner and I don't want to screw up my life, I have to decide purposely what I'm going to sacrifice. No different than when people want to expand their family and have kids. You better decide what you're going to sacrifice, because otherwise you're probably going to sacrifice time with your spouse, and then your marriage ends up being a sacrifice you make. I don't want that to happen to you. I don't want it to happen to me. Does that make sense? That's why when we had kids, certain things I just didn't do anymore. Why? Because I must sacrifice that if I want to be successful as a parent. Makes sense? No different than this business. No different than this business. If you want to write $40,000 in personal production, issue paid in a month so that you can go to a 100% contract, what must you sacrifice to do that? If you want to go agency manager before national convention, what must I sacrifice to do that. Can I tell you a must sacrifice? There's a big one. I want too many people to know about this one. A big thing and put on the must sacrifice, being right. That's the big one. Everybody gets married. I tell them you can be right or you can be happy, but you won't get to be both. You want to go partner, you can be right or you can go partner. You can't be both. You can write $40,000 in a month or you can be right. You won't be both. That's one. But think of others. What's the best way to do that? Just pay attention to your week between now and when we get back together next Monday. What are you doing? Pay attention. Pay attention. Most people waste so much time scrolling on social media. It's a tragedy how much of their life, I'm talking about life, you can't get it back. I'm talking about life wasted looking at what other people are posting. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? Wasting life looking at that. People say, did you see this new thing? You said, oh, I ain't got time for that. I ain't got time for that. Why? Because I've got a list of must accomplish that aligns with my priorities. And so keeping up with what Dum Dum's posting about Dum Dum is not something on my list. I can't spend time doing that crap. Can't spend time, keeping up with this, that must sacrifice. Because I want you to make the right sacrifices. Because otherwise, here's what happens. We make sacrifices on accident by default. And those are always the wrong sacrifices. That's the stories, and low performers love to throw these stories around. Well, he built his business, but then his marriage fell apart. His marriage didn't fall apart because of the business. His marriage fell apart because he didn't make the right sacrifices. Does that make sense? So what must I sacrifice? So once we get those big 3 decisions made, now we've got to set our schedule. When you set your calendar, I'm just going to give you some basics to brew on, and don't get crazy with this. Don't come up with 38 different versions of your calendar and color coded and all that. That's a bunch of busy work that feels like work, but it ain't work. It ain't accomplishing nothing. Set it and adjust. Don't try and set the perfect schedule because it won't exist. I don't know about you, but I have never had the perfect schedule. Why? Because I'm an imperfect person making it. Make sense? So there's no sense in me trying to figure out the perfect calendar because I'm an imperfect mess. I'm the one making it ain't perfect. What am I supposed to do? As best as you can, and then just adjust. One of the beautiful things about consistency, whether it's in business, marriage, or whatever, consistency is not perfection. Consistency is constant correction. So you're going to make a calendar and we're going to adjust. We're going to adjust and we're going to keep adjusting. All right. So I'm just going to give you some basics. Big events first, big rocks first, big events. NatCon's already in my calendar. TWC on Wednesdays in my calendar. Activity call on Fridays in my calendar. Personal growth in the morning, late at night, not while we're not during money making time, but we've got to have everyday personal growth in our calendar. Get up earlier, get up 30 minutes early, change your life. Add that personal growth component. It's got to be in there. And if it's in my calendar, I'm going to do it. If it's in my calendar, I'll tell you 1 or 2 things is going on. If it's in my calendar, either I love to do it or I hate to do it. But either way, it's in my calendar. So personal growth, activity, and hours. People say, this is my dial day. It's my dial day. They got 9 hours of dialing supposedly, but then they book 4 appointments and make 40 dials. No. 50 dials per hour. So if you got a 4-hour block of dials, how many dials is that? 4 times 50. Makes sense? It's got to be activity and a quantifiable number, something quantifiable that you can measure, not just going to make dials for 4 hours. Because here's what you'll do. You'll do what I do. If I don't have that, we'll drag it out. We'll stretch it to meet the time instead of squeeze what we can out of the time. We'll stretch it to meet the time instead of squeeze what we can out of the time. When you say this 4-hour block is 200 dials, no matter what, you'll squeeze it out instead of stretch it out. Squeeze it out. Don't stretch it out. That's what low performers do. You give a low performer 8 hours to do something, I'll tell you exactly how long he's going to take to get it done. 8 hours. Squeeze it out. Don't stretch it out. All right. Number 4 thing you got to get in when you're working on your calendar is the resources needed. You want to be frustrated. Decide you're going to go write $40,000 of issue paid personal production and then only get you $150 worth of leads. Ain't going to work. It ain't going to work. The fastest way to drive production is to invest in leads. That's the only way to drive production, unless you've been in the business as long as myself or Hutch, where we have massive client bases. You've got to just invest like crazy in leads. How much? There is no such thing as too much to invest in leads. Why? Because of what I'm trying to accomplish. Does that make sense? Like back when I was getting started, Andy helped me see if I want to get there, I need to invest more than I'm comfortable investing in leads, because that will create the result eventually. And then number 5 thing to remember with your calendar, please look around the corners. People get shocked all the time and they say, well, my production's down because it was Labor Day. Well, my production's down because, Thanksgiving. Production's down because of, Christmas. Kind of, let me tell you something. Here is a beautiful thing. This is beautiful. This is a secret to most of the world. It's a secret to low performers. So y'all tells me low performers as you can, because they don't know this. They don't. Here's a secret that low performers don't know. All the holidays are already on the calendar. Oh yeah, all the holidays are already on the calendar. The dates for National Convention are already out there. I'm joking around, but I'm not. Does that make sense? Don't get caught by that stuff. Look around the corners. So it's weekly, zoom out monthly, zoom out quarterly, zoom out for the year. So that way you don't get caught. So if I'm gonna go here for 3 days, then I need to double down these 4. This is not complicated. It's not complicated, but it's hard work, but it's not complicated. All right. And then last thing, just some things to remember. Once you get your system in place, it takes absolute commitment. You'll hear me not talk about my calendar as much as my covenant. Why? Because it just makes me think about Indiana Jones and I take it more serious. No, I mean, I use serious words because I need to be serious with myself about something this vital. It's crazy how just casual people will be about something as vital as time. It's the most expensive thing. It's the highest commodity, and people are casual with it. Jokers will be tight-fisted about money. Like, I won't spend any more than $50 on leads, but then they're just casual as can be with their time. And it's like, bro, you can always make more money. You can't make more time. So absolute commitment. Be brutal with keeping your calendar. And let me tell you something. And Jeremico will tell you, he'll tell you this, man. Big breakthrough for him. Years ago, 10 years ago, I don't remember, 9 years ago, Jeremico knows. When he started managing his calendar the same way he managed his schedule at the factory. When he was at the factory before here, they give him a schedule and that was it. Mama couldn't call. Nobody could call when I was working my shift. Same way with dial time. My dial time, the reason my production took off and my income took off so fast in those first 3 years, I was brutal with my dial time. I mean, it didn't matter. I mean, the president of the United States called, you cannot get through while I'm making dials. Why? Because if I don't make dials, then the rest of my system doesn't work and I don't get the end result I need. So I'm brutal with my dial time. Cannot be interrupted during my dial time. You've got to be brutal with it. Don't allow other people's emergencies to hijack your day. Don't allow other people's emergencies to hijack your day. Their lack of planning, their poor decisions, you don't let that hijack your day. It's not your responsibility. It's not your responsibility. Well, they're going to get mad at me. Who cares? Let me tell you something. Write this down. This is big. Misplaced kindness is cruelty. Misplaced kindness is cruelty. Meaning if you continue to let their supposed emergencies, their lack of planning, and their poor decisions to continue to hijack your day, you're telling them it's okay to act like that. You're telling them it's okay to behave like that. Grown adult, poor decisions, lack of planning, you're telling them it's okay. That's cruel. Does that make sense? Can you see how misplaced kindnesses are a cruelty? Teach them a lesson. That's the only way to get better. It's the only way they're going to get better. Here's the other thing. Don't confuse flexibility with freedom. I hear people say, I love the freedom of this business. Be clear. If you need personal production income, you do not have freedom yet. You can get there. What you have is flexibility, but don't confuse the two. If you're the number one person on your team was no longer able to produce, and then that would jack up your income to where you couldn't pay, you don't have freedom. You have flexibility. Don't confuse the two. I know they both start with an F and have a lot of similar letters, but they're not the same. You have flexibility on your way to freedom. And you can give freedom in this business. Absolute freedom. Hey, trust me, when we were on vacation last week, my income didn't take a hit. Why? Because we've worked hard to build that. But you've got to build it. But don't confuse flexibility with freedom. Guys, I know we ran a little over because we started a little late. Holly and I love you. We want you to win more than you can possibly imagine. Can't wait to get out there to Denver. If you got anybody around Denver, get them there Friday night for the opportunity meeting, then the boot camp the next day. I told those guys, I'm going to give you all I got. I'm going to give you all I got. And you say, well, are we going to record it? Can it be broadcast? I don't know what they're going to do or not do, but here's what I tell you: nothing like getting it in person. Get your people there. They got people. That couple from San Francisco's flying in for it. I mean, they got people coming in from all over. It's going to be a massive event this Friday. Can't wait to get out there, guys. Let's get down. Let's get after it. If you need help getting your system set up right, we can help you. We can help you because we want, and we will help you because we want you to win. All right, hammer down. Let's get after it.